Hey CBC, Pastor Scott here with our daily Bible reading devotional video. If you'd like to get these emailed to you directly, just go ahead and sign up as always at findcommunity.com/Bible reading. If you've been joining us this week, then you know that we'll be starting a series this weekend called Let It Roll, looking at issues of justice and kind of God's disgust at injustice and kind of what our role is as followers of Jesus. And in order to really engage with this series, I think we need to approach it with a spirit of humility, recognizing that none of us have all the answers, none of us know everything, none of us know what it's like to spend a day in somebody else's shoes. So I think humility is key to this series, and humility is just key to life, because humility really opens us up to grace, and that's what we see in our passage for today. So let's take a look at that. Luke chapter 18, beginning in verse 9. So let's read that. To some who are confident of their own righteousness and look down on everyone else, Jesus told this parable. Two men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee stood by himself and prayed, "God, I thank you that I am not like other people, robbers, evildoers, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week and give a tenth of all I get." But the tax collector stood at a distance. He would not even look up to heaven, but beat his breast and said, "God, have mercy on me, a sinner." I tell you that this man, rather than the other, went home justified before God. For all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. In this parable, Jesus contrasts those who exalt themselves and those who humble themselves. He says those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. The Pharisee has so many words, but he's just putting on a show, right? He's a self-aggrandizing, just look at me, look at all the stuff that I'm great at. And that's contrasted with the tax collector. He's not proud, he's not arrogant. He humbly recognizes who he is, right? He's this sinner in front of God. The Bible says he can't even stand to look up. He stands apart, far away, because he so understands who he is. And he has a simple prayer. So much less words. So small compared to what the arrogant Pharisee said, yet so much more powerful. God, have mercy on me, a sinner. The Pharisee doesn't think he needs grace. He doesn't think he needs mercy, which is why he doesn't go home justified. So see, the Pharisee, his pride keeps him from experiencing grace. Why would he need grace? He's so amazing. Why would he need grace? He does so much. Why would he need grace? He's so much better than those other people. Why would he need grace? And so he doesn't find it. But if we can humbly admit our need, if we can humbly admit we're broken, if we can humbly admit we've missed the mark, if we can humbly admit that we don't have all the answers, then in that place of humility, grace covers us. And so who do you want to be like in this story? Do you want to be like the arrogant, self-aggrandizing, pompous jerk of a Pharisee? Or do you want to be like the humble, God-fearing, grace-receiving, grace-understanding tax collector? Now, if this were a court of law, the other lawyer would object and say that I was asking a leading question. It was a leading question. But we know the right answer, right? Of course, we want to be like the tax collector. Because if we hung out with the Pharisee, chances are he'd be a jerk. He'd be all about himself. He wouldn't offer us grace. Because if we haven't experienced the need for grace, if we don't know our deep need for grace, then it's really challenging to offer grace to others. And that's why I want to hang out with the tax collector. Because he knows grace. He understands his need for grace. And somebody who knows their need for grace, somebody who's experienced grace, is much more willing to extend that to others. And as we go through this series, looking at difficult issues, injustice, racial inequality, violence. When we look at these things, we're going to need grace. We're going to offer grace to each other. We're going to need grace for ourselves when we think about ways that we failed. We're going to need grace. And the awesome thing about humility is humility creates space for grace. So will you create space for grace in your life this week by maybe just being a little more humble, admitting, God, have mercy on me, a sinner, and seeing what that prayer, that recognition of our need for grace might do in our lives. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really, really excited to worship with you this weekend at CBC Online. Check out live.findcommunity.com, 9:15, 11 o'clock on Sunday, and we will see you then. Have a great day.